We have just a couple people left still signing in, so when they're in here, we'll get started. And if anyone else is sitting in the lobby, please come in. Thank you. Oh, you couldn't hear me? You can hear me now. All right. All right. I think everyone who showed up has registered, so we'll get started now. Welcome to the 2023 Ethical Society of St. Louis annual meeting. I think I know almost all of you, but just in case you don't know who I am, I'm Lance Finney. I'm the outgoing president of the board of the Ethical Society, and you'll hear more from me later, but I just wanted to welcome you. Everyone had a chance, I hope, to grab a copy of the report at the registration desk, and on page 3 there's an agenda. Do not rely too much on the expectation of times. I know I'm going to go over my 10 minutes. I don't know about others. Just giving you a heads up. But with that, we will get started, and we will start first with Katie talking about the meeting minutes from last year.
Hi, so the minutes from last year's annual meeting have been up on the website, and they were linked in the annual report. So does anybody have any questions about those? Okay, excellent.
All right, and we will follow our normal approach that we take with the board in voting on this, and that is That is voting by consensus, so we do not usually do a roll call vote or anything like that when we vote on the board. And I'll just be asking, is there anyone who stands opposed to accepting the meeting minutes from last year? Anyone who stands aside? All right, the minutes are accepted. That's how we do it on the board here. All right, so with that, I will start with the state of the society. So this is actually the second time that I've given this talk here. I gave the State of the Society last year as well, which is unusual in our governance model. Usually we have a president for only 1 year, but as some of you know, I stepped in early last year because Mary Ellen Stanton, my predecessor, had to step down because of cancer. And we completely supported her in her decision. It was the right thing to do. And I saw her downstairs. I don't see her in here. Oh, there she is. Hello, Mary Ellen. And so, yay, she's doing well. I don't know if people saw her. She volunteered at the trivia night, so thank you for being here tonight. So glad that your recovery is doing well. So in comparison to when I spoke here last year, things have changed in the society, and the biggest change is the person who's sitting at the other end of the table. We had someone else last year. So I'm going to start talking about how that process happened. You can read some of it in the report. I'm going to be using basically the same framing of talking about the board goals, but I'm going to just give you more information. Some more information in some ways, less in others. So as I said, we have a new leader. And a year ago, we were expecting to hire a leader. When the board met soon after this meeting, we planned that we would be hiring a new leader. But at the point of this meeting last year, we were not expecting to hire a new senior leader. We were looking at the possibility of hiring a second leader to work with James. And in preparation for that, the previous board, so over a year ago, had put out a survey of the membership asking what people wanted in a second leader to work alongside with James. And we got a lot of good information from that, and we were going to use that as our basis for hiring a second leader. There was, of course, not unanimity. People had different preferences, people had different things that they had in mind, but one of the main themes that we took from the survey response was that people wanted someone who was not an outreach director type leader. because that was James's approach. He had been hired as our second leader initially as an outreach director, and he still had that general approach in some ways when he was our senior leader, our solo leader. And it fit his personality, it made sense. And there was a sense that we wanted a second leader to be someone who was more internally focused. Now, we can't entirely take those lessons for one question and apply them to a different question of what do we want in a solo leader, but we thought as a board that that was a good indication of what the society wanted when James let us know that he was not going to renew his contract and it was time to find a new leader. Now, it's an interesting job being the leader of an ethical society. We think of it as a full-time job, but that's not really true. It's actually many part-time jobs. And so it's a very difficult job. Some of the part-time jobs are things that we see a lot. Probably the most visible part of the leader role at the society is the platform. And we tend to think of it as the person who goes up every couple weeks, whatever, and gives a 20 to 30-minute talk. But that's not where the responsibility for the platform ends. The leader also curates the entire environment. Helps work with the music to make sure that's what people want, works with the opening words to make sure that that works out well, works with the Platform Speakers Committee to frame what the theme is for the year, works with the SEEK program to make sure that the kids are up here. There's a lot more to it than just that speech, and there's a lot to it even on the Sundays when the leader isn't speaking. That's one part-time job. Another one, like I mentioned with the Platform Speakers team, is just working with members and volunteers on various teams and committees. There's quite a few different groups that interact with a leader at any one point. Pastoral care is another important part-time job. If you're sick, a leader might visit you in the hospital, or if you're struggling with an ethical dilemma, you might go to a leader and ask for help in just trying to get clarity on it. Another part of the role is staff oversight and management and building a collaborative environment of the staff. And we don't see that much directly as members. We see the results of their work, but we don't see the staff meetings. We don't see those deliberations and those relationships, but that is a very important part of the job. And those are the internal parts of the job. Because our society is the largest society in the movement, a certified ethical leader who is the leader of the Ethical Society of St. Louis has a visibility nationwide, inherently. So both James and Kate were very involved with the National Leadership Council. They were, I believe they were both at one point or another the dean of the National Leadership Council and very involved in national level ethical culture activities that we really don't ever see as members. James also leaned into humanist thought leadership, of being a humanist leader nationwide and worldwide, with blog posts and podcasts and going to other societies and other venues and giving speeches. There's also activism leadership. James told many times the story about how when he came here, it was right before Michael Brown was murdered, and working with the society to figure out what was our response going to be to that action, to that murder in our own community, and helping us get to a position where we had Black Lives Matter vigils. James also led us in supporting trans rights as they're being attacked. He would be all over that right now if he were still here. And he helped build the Activist Academy last year, which did a whole lot of work in supporting a very successful fundraiser for the abortion fund here last year. So those are also part-time jobs that can be part of this job. No one person can prioritize all those. No one person can be the best at all those. James prioritized more, some of those more than other people might. And, so some of the things he did great and some of the things he didn't do as great. And that's going to be true anytime we have a single leader, which is why we wanted a second leader, and hopefully maybe we can consider that again when we are past this interim phase. But when it came time to find a new leader, what do we want? Do we want someone who's more outwardly focused? Do we want someone who's more inwardly focused? We knew we wanted someone who had at least some inward focus, but we weren't really sure what the community wanted because there wasn't unanimity, and that is really why we went with an interim leader approach. So we put forth together a committee, although that's not really true. We asked, hi, Bob and Kathy, we asked the Pickards to be our leaders, and they put together a team for us. So thank you very much to Bob and Kathy, and also thank you to the rest of their team, Carol Beer, David Brown, Tom Draney, Rachel Jones, and Lindsay Nissenbaum, who did a wonderful job and took the role very seriously. And I don't know if people know about this, but even before they took on this responsibility, the board last year selected Bob and Kathy for the Anna Garland Spencer Award for long-term volunteer service. And unfortunately, there was a mess up in the announcement of that last year, but they got the award. And so thank you again, Bob and Kathy. So the upshot of all that and explaining why we have all these different leaders is just to let you know, Amy came from outside the movement. We interviewed people from, we advertised within the movement, or the Pickards and their team advertised within the movement, and we didn't get any applications. So someone came from outside the movement, with that experience in social work. And Amy has done a great job at the internal focus things. The board has explicitly not asked her to be a national or international voice for humanism or ethical culture. That's not her role for us. Her role is helping us as a community bridge the gap from our last settled leader to our next one and figure out what we want that to be. And oh yeah, I listed all those part-time jobs. That's another one that the interim has. Amy has a lot. Your job is tough, So that is where we are. And as you know, we had a town hall in October and invited you in for questions, and we talked about that. And James left at the end of November. We had a 1-month gap without a leader. Amy started in January, and so far, the board is very happy with what she has done by focusing internally for us. So that was our first goal. All that was just one goal. And that took up a lot of our energy for the first part of the year. Our second goal was to improve SEEK. And early on in the board year, Kit Rogers and Mary Murphy Overman, trustees, worked with James to interview and hire Zoanne. And we were hoping that Zoanne would help build that foundation. But unfortunately, Zoanne decided to resign in January, so we were kind of back to square one. And at that point, we didn't have staff in place who would be able to step in for that. Amy was brand new, and we just didn't have extra staff. And so someone else did step in. And Kit Rogers and Mary Murphy Overman, our members of the board, stepped in. They had many, many years of experience working with the youth in different capacities already. They know how the society worked. They're both very organized. And I would say that their efforts to keep the multiple programs that we have for K through 12 going was heroic. Both of them spent a lot of time on that, in addition to their board activities, which is in addition to their family lives, in addition to their 9-to-5s. So thank you very much. Fortunately, that part of their extra volunteerism is going to be able to end soon because we have hired a new SEEK director. Megan McCarthy will start next month. So I'm assuming that Mary and Kit will be doing a lot of transition and work with her, but eventually they will be able to not be our temporary volunteer SEEK directors. Our third goal was what we called program support, and there were two parts of this. One was that we wanted to help support Louise in her career as an ethical leader. If you know Louise, you know that she has been with us for many years, working first as our social media manager and now as our creative director, but her ultimate goal is to be a leader of the ethical society, or an ethical society within the movement. And the next step for her is that she is going to be an intern this summer. And I don't know how many people know this, but she will be splitting an internship between the Ethical Society of St. Louis and Ethical Society Mid-River starting in a couple weeks. And so she's going to be learning from Amy and also from Kate, who will be coming in to give the ethical culture perspective, how a large society works, and working at Mid-Rivers to see how a smaller, leaderless society works. So we're very excited to help her in her career path. That was part one of that goal. The second one was, once we knew that James was leaving, we had no idea how quickly we'd be able to find his successor. There was a very real chance that there would be multiple months that we would be leaderless. And a lot of the role of the leader would fall on the board. And so we put in a goal to say we might have to take on that responsibility. Fortunately, it didn't work out that way because there was only a 1 month gap, and December's really only half a month around here. So we did not have to step up at the level that we thought we would, but in the process of preparing for that, we realized that our governance model was such that all decisions about staffing go through the leader. And it really presumed that we'd have a leader, and there was just no provision for a leaderless society. So we presented to the membership at a forum in January a bylaws amendment to allow, in that circumstance, for the board to take on the roles and responsibilities of hiring, firing, discipline, accepting or approving vacations, all of that stuff that otherwise our governance model wouldn't have allowed. So thank you very much for voting for that. Unfortunately, we didn't need to use it, but maybe in the future, another board will need to use it. The last goal was reconsider the president rule. And this one we completely punted, frankly. The tension with that is the president role of the president of the board is a difficult role, and we have a hard time getting people to accept nominations for it. And so we want to take some time, bring in some ex-presidents, and talk about what is the role, what should it be, how can we reconfigure it, spread the burden, the joy around with other members of the trustees or something else in order to make it less daunting for people that we ask. And we had the intention to do that, but when James let us know that he wasn't coming back, we just said, okay, that's a problem for another year. So we did not achieve that goal, but we did achieve other goals. Other major activities that were not directly related to our goals, one is, as I mentioned, we had 2 listening or Q&A sessions, the town hall in October for why, how is the leader search going, and then the forum in January. So in both of those, we had half an hour of Q&A with membership, similar to what we'll have later today. And we realized that that is really good. And so already Trish has scheduled a forum in September for a board Q&A. We have no idea what the issues will be then, but you'll be welcome to come and ask us questions. And we're hoping that having something like that every 4 months or so will be good to help communication between the board and the membership. A second major activity was finishing, or almost finishing actually, something that has been in the works for a very long time. We have a very beautiful building. It's kind of old, and so is the electrical system in here. And our insurance company really didn't want to have to replace the building because of a fire. We don't think it would have happened, but they thought maybe our old breaker panels were at risk. And so our insurance company was very forceful that we needed to replace our breaker panels. And that had been going on for a while, like the negotiations around that, but we finally, that is in process, and I believe 6 of the 7 panels have been replaced, and the last one is just waiting for the summer to not interrupt the nursery school. So that is a large one-time expense that happened this year, but it's necessary to keep insurance for the building. Another change that happened that had been in the works for a long time is hiring outside financial management. So Steve is somewhere, hey, right in the second row. Steve has been leading our treasurer. He has been our treasurer for a long time, and he's led our finance committee. And for many years, Steve has been the focal point for managing our investments, our endowment, that sort of thing. And he's done a great job, but having all our eggs in one basket was a risk for the society. So it had been a many years plan to hire professional outside management to work with Steve and the rest of the Finance Committee to manage our investments so that we do not have a dependency on just one person. So that has been completed, and Steve and the Finance Committee are working with that company now. There's one other thing to bring up related to finance that happened too late to be in the annual report, but just want to let people know. When the building was being winterized, there was a mistake with the pond. So the pond out there, it's pretty, but it's not just decorative, it's actually part of our air conditioning system, which is kind of working tonight. And there was just a mistake in getting it winterized that wasted a lot of water. And so we had a surprisingly large water bill. Now, fortunately, in addition to having this large unexpected expense, we had a large unexpected revenue in that our previous membership coordinator, Lou Nottingham, did a really good job of selling rentals. And we had enough extra money from the rentals to cover that gap. Would we have loved to use that money for something else? Absolutely. But fortunately, we had that available to us. So we did not have to take any extra money out of our reserves or emergency reserves or anything like that to cover it, and so we'll be safe. It is the type of thing that for some societies would be an existential threat, but because of the care that generations of previous members have taken for the society, we were able to weather it without a problem. And the rental income was good as well. So with that, I have one last thing. So I would like to invite Mary and Kit up here, and Scott just went downstairs to fetch Stephanie. So if they can come up here for a moment. Come on up, Kit. Oh, yeah, no problem. So I'm hoping Stephanie will be up here in a moment. I asked Scott to go fetch her. As I mentioned earlier, we owe a great debt of gratitude to Mary and Kit for going above and beyond on working with the SEEK program. And we don't have enough to really thank them, but we do have a card for each of them. And no, you're not done yet. And then also, here. So Stephanie, come up here as well, too. So before I talk about that, I want to also thank Stephanie. As I mentioned, when Mary Ellen stepped down last year, we had a gap in the president role that I filled briefly, but we also would have had a gap for this entire past year as the past president. And in our governance model, the past president is the member of the board who had just been president and has that history in mind, knows how the society works, has that experience, and looks towards the future, looks to make sure our governance is working well, works with the nominating committee for the future. And with being president for a year without a past president for me to lean on for expertise would not have worked. And so at the beginning of last year, I asked Stephanie if she would be willing to serve a second year as past president, which was her fourth year in the president track this time, and her seventh year total on the board over the last decade or so. And thank you so much. So I think it's fair to say that without these three women, these three trustees, we would not have our SEEK program or maybe even the board. So thank you much. So, sorry, laughing too close to the mic. So here's a card for the board, and then I will let the three of you decide which colors work with your gardens. I don't know, but we bought some Missouri native perennials. So we have a blue lobelia, a prairie blazing star, and an orange cornflower that you can keep in your house or plant in your garden and remember our gratitude for what you've done for us this year. So thank you. So, and thanks to the three of you. And I know I went way over my 10 minutes allotted, but there was a lot to discuss there. Next, I'll invite Maxine Stone up to give the nominating committee report.
Hello, everybody. So I was chair of the nominating committee, and we have two wonderful nominees. There were two openings. One was for a president-elect, one was for a secretary. So Scott Wright has been nominated as president-elect. He's been an active member of Ethical Society for the past 8 years. In that time, Scott has contributed to the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee, membership team, fundraising team, citizenship empowerment team, platform reimagine team, humanist hangouts, ethical band, and activist academy, and probably lots more. He looks forward to engaging the society as a member of the board of trustees. We have Rachel Jones, who is also a nominee, and she is hopefully going to be our secretary. Rachel Jones is a St. Louis native and has been a member of Ethical Society since 2016. She works as an administrative assistant at the Bach Society of St. Louis, and her previous board experience includes service in roles of treasurer of a parent cooperative in Germany, secretary of Missouri Choral Arts, representative in the Young Friends Council of the Missouri Botanical Garden. She is currently serving as treasurer of her Homeowners Association. I don't have information of what she's done here at Ethical, but she's done a lot. So she looks forward to serving on the board if the society will have her. So those are our two nominees, and I think they are wonderful people.
Thank you, Maxine. Next, we'll hear about the budget. You can come up here if you want, or you can sit there with a handheld, whatever comfortable.
Oh, it does work. I feel much more comfortable here. And this is my first time presenting about a budget for an ethical society, so I don't really know exactly what you want to know, but I will give you the highlights. Nancy is such a huge help in all things about this job, but specifically, she knows all the ins and outs. She has all the institutional knowledge. She was very, very helpful. We went through every line of this budget together. I learned a lot. The new fiscal year, as you know, runs from June 1st, 2023 till the end of May 2024. I may need that mic instead. The total budgeted expenses will be $624,315. Pledge payments are budgeted at $300,000, which is $20,000 more than the current budget, but adjusted for inflation would be the lowest since at least 2004. So that speaks to the fact that everything costs more and everybody has less money. The proposed budget uses 4% of the 3-year average balance from the endowment fund, which is pretty typical, and 4% of the 3-year average balance from the Stuckenberg program and the development fund. As far as I know, as far as I understand from previous budgets, this is pretty typical. We are increasing the hourly rate for all employees are getting a raise, which is great. You have such a wonderful, this is such a great place, and there's so many people who make things happen, and yet you have a small staff. So like, I'm the only full-time employee. You also, I don't know if you know that you have a whole event staff that takes care of a lot of, as Lance mentioned, Lou did a lot of rentals. So for these concerts, I don't know if any of you have come to the candlelight concerts that are amazing and bringing in a lot of people to our building. There's event staff for that. Everyone is getting a pay increase. I'm not sure what else you want to know or what I should tell you about the budget. Nancy, is there anything that you would think of that I should say that the people would want to know from past years? Is there anything? Because obviously I wasn't here last year. The highlights are all here for you to see. Nothing? Okay, great.
All right, and the point of the agenda now is membership votes. This is kind of a holdover from, we used to, hold up cards and vote like this. Now that we have already done the ballot, an online ballot, is there anyone here who is still voting who needs a little bit more time? Okay. So what I'd say is, if no one wants more time, Nathan, close off the online voting, and then let's take a few minutes if there's just general Q&A about anything that we've heard so far. Alan?
What is the outcome of the most recent pledge drive?
Question was, what is the outcome from the most recent pledge drive? I don't have that number off the top of my head. Budgeted at 300,000. And I'll repeat that just for people who are online who can only hear things through the mic. It's budgeted at 300,000, and the exact number we don't have off the top of our head, but we believe that it will be pretty close to that. Yes. So the question was, are we still considering a second leader? Not at the moment. That is, ideally, we will get the energy and the funding to be able to support that, and a lot of that funding will have to, frankly, be through pledges, but we're not there yet, and we are working with our interim director to help us figure that out. And she asks questions on the survey each week, and she has the coffee meetings with the director. I've heard they're great. I recommend you going it. She hears enough from me. I don't need to be there. So we're going to be trying to figure out what we want, and ideally, maybe in a few years we'll have a second director, but we're not there right now. Yeah. So the question was, can we have a paperless initiative, and specifically mentioning the Sunday handouts? That was something James tried last year, and it was unpopular. James tried to suggest he'd have QR codes up here, and it just, there were some members of the society for whom that worked really well, and there were some for whom it didn't work. And so maybe we'll try again at some point, but not right now. Andy?
Well, you mentioned something about possible replacement for Lou Nottingham and Armando.
Okay. Yeah, the question was who is going to be replacing some staff who has recently left, and Amy will cover that in her report. Samantha?
If you have a paper ballot and you want to hand it to me so I can count it, that'd be awesome.
Oh, there were still a few out there. Okay. Thank you for getting my attention on that. Thank you. And then there are a couple over there with the Forests and Marianne. Thank you, Kit and Samantha. Sue.
What personnel are covered in the office and program salaries? How many people is it? This was done before some of the resignations.
So the question was, how many people is covered by the office salaries? I don't have that number off the top of my head.
Answer. I know the answer.
Thank you,
Sue, I am prepared with this information. I know, I took notes yesterday. So For office and program salaries is AV, creative director, membership, music director, and Nancy. And then the maintenance is Joe, event staff, and Sundays. Joe, the building manager. And then the Seek is all the Seek expense, all the Seek salaries, including the Sunday school teachers, right?
All right. Any other questions at this point? Any other ballots that need to be turned in? Yes, Alan?
Are there a lot of names on our member list that the board plans to remove from the member list?
So the question was, does our member list have names that will be removed? I believe the intent, I believe I've heard a conversation that before the apportionment is calculated in December, we will have a purge is the word we use, a purge of old members who have not been active with the society and have not donated. It's something that we tend to do. I don't know if it's every year, or we haven't done it for a little while. The main reason that we do that, for those of you who don't know, is the way that our parent organization, the American Ethical Union, is funded in large part is from individual societies, and they do a calculation, and one of the factors in there is the number of members. So every member that we have, we pay $100 to the national organization a year. So if we have 10 people on our rolls who are not contributing financially or active in the society at all, we still pay $1,000 for them. So otherwise, we might just inflate the numbers to sound really cool, but no. But no, we don't do that. But we do need to make sure that who we have on our rolls are actually involved in the society, and I believe we are planning to do that in December. Steve?
So we did that every year until COVID hit, and then for whatever reason it didn't get done for a couple of years. So this will just be a restoration of the same process that we've gone through for the last decade or more.
And so Steve Harris, our treasurer, filled in a detail that I did not have, that we used to do that every year, but with COVID, we paused that process, and we will resume it this year. Cheryl? The question is there a discussion about renaming the organization? It actually came up, our secretary, Katie, looked at the minutes from last year and saw that someone suggested a name. Oh, I misunderstood, I'm sorry.
Whether there's still discussion on whether we remain
Oh, remain, I heard rename, I'm sorry. That is an interesting question. The American Ethical Union is going through some troubled times right now. There's a lot of disagreement within the board on how to proceed. Their board, not our board. And there's actually, there's a proposal on the board, on the table right now from the interim executive director. They have to consider which of three options to take. So I will come back directly to your question, but I'm kind of giving the context. Which direction to take, either the status quo or try to pause the organization entirely for a year and bring in an organizational consultant who would analyze the situation and try to recommend a way that in the future it can be a sustainable business model and a sustainable ethical organization, or propose merging with another organization, another humanist or humanist religious organization, something like that. How that plays out could affect what we end up doing. There are definitely times that people have looked at our apportionment and said we could do very different things with that money instead of sending it to the national organization. We are not actively considering that right now, but we need to have those conversations before it ever happens. Theoretically, the board at any meeting could just say, yeah, we're done. We're not going to do that. If any move is going to happen, it is going to be after a lot of discussion with the congregation to find out what people want. And right now, the American Ethical Union is troubled. We need to figure out what is going to happen. And coincidentally, right now, the American Ethical Union is having a listening session where the executive director is talking to members across the country about these very questions. And we didn't tell you much about them because we wanted you to be here. frankly. But they're doing another one on Saturday, and they're doing another one on June 3rd. So please take a look at the recent email blasts, a weekly blast for information about that. If you want to know more about what is going on with our national organization and how we are going to interact with them. Oh, well, what is going on with our national organization, which is going to inform any decision we make in the future. Pay attention to that. We are not going to be making any sudden moves anytime soon, but there are concerns. Sai? The question was whether we derive our nonprofit status from the AEU, and I think that it's independent. We are a nonprofit within the state of Missouri, not because we are associated with them. Yeah. All right. With that, I think we'll close the Q&A. We might have some time later for more Q&A, but at this point, let's move on to the director report.
I'm going to stay here again, if that's okay with everyone. So to Lance's point, this is a hard job, guys. And there's so many wonderful parts of it. And so I do want to be mindful to make sure that I don't complain about it more than I celebrate the fact that I've been able to do this, because it's been really fun in a lot of ways and really stretched me in a lot of other ways. And I've gotten to sing on this stage, which is amazing. So it's been hard, but it's been really satisfying, and I really appreciate you guys trusting me, and I really appreciate the search committee for their efforts in finding me, and I appreciate the board for trusting me. I want to thank Lance specifically as the board president. He has talked to me a lot. He's given me a lot of advice and a lot of ear. So I appreciate you very much. I wanted to thank Nancy also for. I know she likes to stay incognito. Sorry. I know, but Nancy, I know. Sorry. I know. I'm sorry. She even let me take her picture last week. I don't know if you guys saw that on Facebook. It was amazing. She doesn't like pictures, but anyway, Nancy, I appreciate you so much, as I tell you all the time, but I couldn't have done any of this so far without you. Appreciate you. And Kit and Mary for stepping in, because when Zoanne decided to resign, I was like, I did not put Sunday school director on my resume. That is not in my skill set. That is not, I don't know how to do that. What do we do? And they stepped into that so generously. And so Kit and Mary, you guys really saved the day. Really appreciate you. I also wanted to thank Katie for participating specifically in the interview process. We interviewed 3 really, really strong candidates for the SEEK position, and Katie, Mary, and Kit and I unanimously chose to offer the job to Megan Bezdek McCarthy. I think I got that right. She has, so many of you have probably met her. She has been teaching the 5th and 6th grade class for I hired her as a teacher to start in April, and then she applied for the SEEK director position. She's a children's librarian. She comes with a rich skill set and a lot of excitement and a lot of really good ideas, and also extremely great organizational skills and the ability, she's just gonna plan these programs and it's gonna be awesome, and I'm so excited. And Trish referred her, which I appreciate because she knew her from library stuff, which also, Trish, thank you for being awesome as well as the incoming president. And so thank you to the rest of the board, because they've been really supportive. So I don't regret taking the job despite the challenges, and there have been a lot. There's been a lot. As with any leadership change, there's been transition, and then we've been pivoting a lot, and so something happens, and then we pivot, and something else happens. And it's been a really intense learning experience, but good. So in addition to Megan, so you guys know that Lou Nottingham, Laura, is amazing, and she was the membership coordinator and then the membership and program manager, and she unfortunately got a job offer she could not refuse, making a lot more money, and so she regretfully left. This last week was Monday was her last day. However, one of the strong candidates from the SEEK interviews dropped a lot of really useful crumbs in her interview that when we decided to offer the job to Megan, we thought maybe Courtney would take this other job because we had just found out that Laura was for sure planning to leave. She'd been very transparent about the whole thing. So then Laura met with Courtney as well and really sold her on the job and helped interview her. So we offered Courtney the job of membership and program coordinator. So she will be starting June 6th as well. She is a social worker, and she's been working in county government, but she's done all kinds of also programming, and she dropped words like warm and welcoming community, and she can't wait to get to know the people and work with the SEEK director. This microphone is not reliable. To get the pipeline of new members and members with children, to get them involved in SEEK and put all the pieces together. We also have, so Laura, I don't know if you know this, but Laura Liu was also doing rentals, which she had taken over from Nancy. And so we separated those jobs back out, and Adam Presswood, who has been an event worker here for quite a while, I don't know how long, 6 years. Adam Presswood has accepted the position as the rental coordinator. So now we have a rental coordinator as well. And then for the music director, last fall, when the music director search was happening, there was another strong candidate who, at the time, for a variety of reasons, was not selected for the role. I reached out to her, I got her information, and I'd heard so much about her from a number of people, and reached out to her, and she came in and interviewed. Nancy and I were in the interview with her again. She had been extensively vetted previously, and she has accepted the position of music director. She has extensive choral direction experience. She plays piano, she plays ukulele, she plays guitar, she sings, and her name's Claire Menace, and I'm very excited about her also. So, and she's also beginning June 6th. So June 6th is our first staff meeting, and we will be fully staffed, and all of these people are very excited to be here and excited to get to know all of you, and I really think that this is like the next level with all these people working together. So that's the staff update. As you saw in the annual report, I have a number of board goals that I set in January when I didn't know anything. And so I'm not sure they were the same goals that I would set today with a little more information. However, one of those goals is to increase in-person attendance on Sundays, because with COVID, Nancy and I went back and looked at some of the numbers of what in-person attendance was prior to COVID, and they were pretty robust numbers. There was a lot of people here. And so one of my goals for this community is to reintroduce the idea that, Sundays we go to platform. That's what we do most of the time. Sometimes maybe not, but in order to sort of rebuild this community, relearn how to people and how to be together, one of my goals would be for people to show up on Sundays, even if they're not necessarily super jazzed about the topic. To still just come and be part of the community as often as possible, so that we can rebuild old connections and build new ones, especially some intergenerational stuff. I'd really love to see more young people here and connecting with some of the elders in the community who are so cool. Speaking of which, I went to visit Joyce Best, not this last week, but the week before, and spent some time with her and heard all about her very exciting life. And I talked to Randy yesterday, and she is apparently still hanging on. So I know she's a beloved elder in your community. Let's see. Another goal for y'all that I feel responsible for is sort of reigniting a desire for volunteerism here. You have a strong handful of volunteers that do a lot, and unfortunately sometimes they start to get burnt out because they do so much. And so I would love to find more ways for more people to get involved, and to especially like the new members sort of getting together with the older members and sharing that institutional knowledge and doing projects together. That's one of the things that I'm hopeful that, especially with the new membership person and this new team, that we can do more volunteer projects together. I'm available for pastoral care. It looks different than it would with clergy because I'm not clergy. However, I do have a background in therapy and coaching. So if you ever have a thing that you need to talk through or you just want an ear, I am available for that. Many of you have reached out in various ways. I'm very responsive to email. I can't think of anyone that I've failed to return an email to. And also, we've been doing these small coffee dates, the small group coffee dates, which have been really fun. I've had 4 of them so far, I think, and 6 or 7 people have come to each one. And some of the people in the groups didn't know each other, which was fun. I spoke briefly with the TWA on Tuesday. They invited me, the men's group has invited me for this coming Tuesday. So if any of you sometimes go to the men's group, if you want to come, I'm presenting on Tuesday. One other thing that I'd like to say is that, so with Platform and sort of imagining it and reimagining it, we're leaning towards doing an overarching annual theme, and I've sent out this survey a couple times, and 73 members have responded, which is exciting. And it sounds like we're leaning towards the addressing the human condition, and then having sort of threads of topics and things that hopefully will feed everyone. And so if you have suggestions, like Sue Williams, yours was so helpful, by the way. Your suggestions were so helpful. And so for those of you who leave long responses in your surveys or who email me with ideas, I love that, and it's really helpful. I would love to hear from you about speakers you'd like to hear from, and musicians that you're interested in hearing from. I'd really like to do more crowdsourcing as far as that goes, and a little more power sharing, so that everyone has a say and feels a little more investment in the content. I did want to give you guys this feedback that out of 56 responses on the survey, of which of these best describes your personal identity, we had 57% humanists, identify as humanists, 46% identified as ethical humanists, 41% identify as atheist, 40% identified as agnostic, 23% identified as spiritual but not religious, and 21% identified as an ethical culturist. And 12% identify as religious or congregational humanist. So, and a few Unitarian Universalists, a few recovering from organized religion, a few I don't identify with any of this. And so I was unsurprised to find that what a diversity, and that there is really there's no encapsulating definition for who and what this community is. And so I personally would love to help you build an umbrella big enough for everyone who wants to be in a place where they can be themselves and be accepted, and where we can be radically inclusive and make sure that everybody feels safe here. So that is my goal for you guys. I don't know if you agree. I hope you do, because I think that is probably the path forward for the future, is to be embracing of all kinds of different people. I think that's probably all. Oh, I did want to, well, you mentioned Louise, but Louise is coming for her internship, and I am so excited to have her here. She's going to be offering you a couple of platforms this summer. She's going to be doing some programming, some anti-racist programming, and Randy, I met with Randy yesterday, who is helping her organize her internship, and that she can do some of that interfaith stuff and some of the stuff that isn't really in my wheelhouse, because she's such a committed humanist. She really believes in ethical culture and has a lot of deep history. And so I'm really excited to have her here, and she's going to be here in person, which is fun. So we'll all be here together on Tuesdays. I've been alone for so long that now I'm like, I told Nancy, I'm like, I only want to be here when there's other people here. It's not fun by myself. Nancy's going on vacation next week. I'm dreading it. So if anybody wants to come visit next week when I'm here, you just let me know. But I just want, you guys are such an amazing community, and there's so much potential here for not only coming together as a community that already exists, but also embracing other people and bringing in people who are looking for a home. And so you guys are doing a great job. And let me know how I can be helpful to you. I'll be doing some town halls. So on the 28th, which I know is a holiday weekend, but it was the only one that we could like squeeze in there before we start planning for the next programming year. So if you want to come talk about platform and any ideas you have, what you'd like to see, please come to Forum next Sunday, the 28th. And it's also Remembrance Sunday. So also if there's anyone, bless you, if there's anyone that you'd like to remember, please consider reading a poem or saying something about them or whatever you want to do. But I would love to have some folks come up and celebrate people you've lost. And I think that's all. Did I go over my 10 minutes? Maybe. I don't know. I'm a talker. I forgot there's more for me on the agenda. I got some flags in my book. Okay, so we have some new members to celebrate, and we also have some memorials, some folks that we've lost. We lost David Baumgartner this year, who's a member since 2017. Kathy Kendrick was a member since 2013. Joyce Cohn was a member since 2015, and Billy Tino was a member since 1955. Which, can I tell a quick story about Billy Tino? My second Sunday here, I had sung a song on the stage, and I was walking around, and Billy and Alan stopped me to say hi. They didn't know she didn't know who I was. And then she looked at my name tag. She said, "Oh, you're the Amy," because she said, "I loved your singing." And then she said, "Oh, you're the Amy." And she leaned in real close and she said, "You're a very attractive addition to Platform." And I was like, "Oh my God, thank you so much." And then I think I told Lance that she said that, and Nancy, and both of them were like, "Do you know who that is? Like, she's amazing. She's been around forever. She's awesome." So I was really glad to get to have that connection with her just very briefly and then see her around a couple more times. I know she was very special to the community. So new members we have, and if any of the new members are here, you can acknowledge yourselves, raise your hand or something. Karen Anderson, Amanda Aubuchon, Joe Babka, which he gave awesome opening words. You guys really liked that when you gave feedback on the survey. Bill Burgle, Bill Binder, Alexander Breitberg, Byron Brubaker, and Holly Brubaker, Patrick Clark, Trudy Conley, Arthur D'Souza, Casey Henderson, Danielle Lemp and Eric Lemp, Jeffrey Levine, Jim McNally, Mary Ann Perkins. Oh, okay, hey. Sorry, I was moving on. Hey, welcome. And Mary Ann Perkins is here. Mary Ann's been doing the religious transitions group on Monday nights, and it's going really well. And if anyone wants to talk to her about it, I'm sure she would be happy to talk to you about it. Anki Rickard and Gary Rickard, Heriberto Rosario, John Stites, Mandy Sullivan, Heather Thomas, Wendy Weber, and then that is since this was printed. So we will announce our other new members next year at the meeting. Deborah and Mike, welcome.
Thank you. And next we'll have Steve Harris with the Treasurer Report. Do you want the handheld, or do you want to come from the podium? Okay.
So as Amy mentioned, we're expecting to get about $300,000 in pledges for the upcoming year, which is a nice amount, but as she also mentioned, it's still the lowest if you adjust for inflation since my time on the Finance Committee, which goes back to 2004, and it could be earlier than that. And it's also always good to remember that even though it's $300,000, it's still less than half of the budget. So other important parts of the budget come from rentals, and this year we're looking to do almost $77,000, which is far and away the most we've ever gotten in rentals, primarily due to these Fever Up concerts that were mentioned earlier. But next year we're still looking in the budget to get $56,000, which is a pretty healthy amount. Much larger, though, is the amount we get from our various funds, and it's well over a third of the total budget. We're budgeted for $239,000. That's actually an understatement, and I'll explain that in a second here. So I'm not going to read through the report that I've written, but if there's any questions about any of the details or the numbers, I should be able to answer them if someone might have a question. So if not, the second part of my portion of the time up here has to do with bequests. And there were no notable bequests during the past year, but there's something that I want to point out. If you look at the budget, there's a number called tributes bequests. It's always been about in the $9,000 range in recent years. And I want to explain where that comes from. So there's a member named Adolph Abbey who donated $4,000 in 1925. Now, that's 100 years ago practically, so you can imagine what $4,000 since then, it's worth way more than probably 20 times that. But in addition, his estate sends us over $1,000 every year. And we also have a former member named Leo Booter, who died in 1971, which is 50-some years ago. And he left at the time $37,000, and which, of course, the current equivalent is much higher than that. And he also, his estate, sends us about $7,000 to $8,000 a year. So both of those two long time ago members' estates are just between the two of them accounting for over 1% of our annual budget. So of course, the money that comes from these funds was all donated by former members. And to give you an idea of how many of them there were 8 who donated over $100,000, including some that you probably all know, Ed Schmidt, Christine Floss, and the Beckers, because that all happened within the last 10 years or so. There's been 9 others that had a bequest of between $25,000 and $100,000. There were 15 more that had donated via bequest of between $10,000 and $24,000. And then this is all in the last 50 years. In the years 1953 to 89, there were 9 who donated between $5,000 and $10,000, and total so Jim Rhodes and I collected all this information, and I did some analysis on it, and we have this Memory Celebration Garden out in front. There's a number of bricks that have been paid for by members to commemorate family members or other notable people in their lives or former members of the society. We also have all our former leaders out there. I have written the proposal, but I'm not actually presented to the board because of all the stuff that you heard about from Lance and from Amy that really was more important than to worry about this. But my concept is that these 57 people who donated $10,000 or more, are the equivalent based on inflation. I think we ought to have a brick engraved in their memory. And I drew up a location in the Memory Garden on the west side, and at some point plan to present that to the board. The total cost of doing this would be just slightly over $3,000. So I'd like to take this opportunity just to see how many people in attendance, and I think that would be a worthwhile expenditure. Well, I'm glad to see it's at least 3/4, so I'll certainly include that in my report to the board, which I think will be done sometime in this calendar year. So any further questions about? Yes, please go ahead.
As a nonprofit, is the society eligible for any grants? Get any funding from any grants,
Well, you mean government grants?
private grants?
Oh, so the question was, of course, recognizing that we're a nonprofit, do we get any funding from outside grants? And the only funding that I'm aware of, well, we did get a couple $1,000s to help build a rain garden. But other than that, I'm not aware of any grants that came from any source other than our own membership.
Is it possible to apply for grants?
I guess there are situations where it would be possible. We just haven't done that. That's something the board would have to consider.
And Stephanie remembers that we did receive a grant from the International Institute that David Brown helped organize. So it has happened, but it is not something that we regularly do.
That was kind of a pass-through, though, really. It wasn't money that we kept. It was money that was used to help immigrants.
So is that a philosophical decision not to seek out grants?
The question was whether we have a philosophical decision not to seek out grants. I would say no, it just has not been our wheelhouse. If you have a lot of personal experience in grants and you want to talk to the board about how to do that, I'm sure we would be happy to hear from you. All right.
Steve, this is Jim Rhodes. I'm on the Finance Committee for those who don't know, but one of the things that's been happening last year is we've been transitioning the management of most of our assets to a company called Parkside, and I thought, I don't know, that would be something that, Steve, you might want to say a few words about and how that's going.
We did an extensive consideration of at least a half a dozen possible money managers. Nathan Schrank was in charge of that. He did a pretty darn good job on filtering out the ones that we considered and came up with the final choice, which is Parkside. Then he also managed to negotiate their fee down by 20%, so I was pretty impressed with that work. It's a little hard to say how they've been going because we had a difficulty in getting all our funds transferred from Vanguard, where the bulk of them were, due to some signature confusion. So they've only actually had control of all the assets for a few weeks now. And their representative, Lucas Maxwell, did attend the last board meeting, but we didn't really get to the point of any substantive discussions about investments and why they recommend certain types of investments versus others. I expect that to happen over the course of the next few months. I do have a number of things in mind to ask him because, as you may know, I've been doing this myself for the last 15 years, and I still do it as a part-time job for a few other people. So one last point I want to make before I leave the podium here. If you look in the fund balances, you'll see an item called gift annuity equity. So primarily due to Joe Corrigan, some years ago, we initiated a program where people could purchase an annuity through the society, and so they would donate at least $10,000, and depending on their age and whether they had a single person or a couple, they would get a quarterly payment for the rest of their life. And the structure of this is designed so that on average, about half of the money that's donated will end up staying with the society, because once someone dies, then the annuity is over, and so whatever's left, the society holds on to. And so right now, we have about $160-some thousand that accounting-wise is considered our residuum. It's available for use by the board if necessary. We haven't had a very good program on encouraging people to buy new annuities, but now that the interest rates are higher, it could be a lot more attractive than it was in the last few years when the Federal Reserve had this, what some people call a deranged zero interest rate policy. And we are looking for someone to kind of manage the interface between the membership and setting those, arranging to have people make those gift annuities. Now, all the details, it's the financial part of it I and Joe can handle, but we'd like to have someone kind of be the face of the group and that would be interested in talking to people about another way to contribute to the society after their life is over. So if you know someone that you think would be good at that, please let me know. We still have about a dozen or so people, some of whom are in attendance here, that have active annuities with the society. Yeah, they're Joe.
Hold on, Joe.
Billy Tino had 3 contracts, annuity contracts. So when she died, the residual value of each of those contracts should be in this line item. You know, I mean, I'm wondering, Steve, is it in there, the gift annuity equity?
Well, that number that I mentioned is the gift annuity equity. The actual balance of the account is about double that. So we still have to pay every.
But I mean the residual value of her 3 contracts, they should be in that figure, because they're.
Well, they probably won't be, because that was drawn up before her passing. So that number is understated now.
Thank you, Steve. All right, with that, and thanks to our vote counters, Samantha and Kit from the board, and Nathan previously from the board, we have our results. So there were 68 votes counted, which is enough for the quorum. And on the question of Scott Wright being elected as president, he received 64 yes, 2 no, and 2 abstain. On the question of Rachel Jones as trustee, and also Rachel Jones as secretary, for both, 68 yes, 0 no, and 0 abstain. And for the budget, accepting the budget, 64 yes, 0 no, and 4 abstain. So all motions pass. So with that, I'd like to introduce the new board members. Rachel, I believe, is not here, but Scott, our new president-elect, is here, so he's in the middle. So congratulations and condolences, Scott. Thank you. And with that, I will turn over the official role of president to our new president as I walk away as now your past president. This is Trish Cowan.
Do your shoulders feel so much lighter, right? It's like you glided over there. I could see it. Okay, so Steve just spoke with us, and as one of the roles of the president-elect for the year, I was on the finance committee for a year, and I've always been in awe of Steve. He does so much for the society behind the scenes that people just don't even see. You know, once a year he stands up here and gives all of this information that he works on throughout the entire year, tirelessly. Meetings and watching the investments and taking care of our society. Like, really, you see what a big job that is. And so, Steve, I just want to thank you for all of the energy that you put into this. Thank you very much. Volunteer role, that is a big one. I want to echo the appreciation for Kit and Mary. They are incredible. Their energy is unmatched. Their organization, their passion for Seek. It is very common across the movement and across other Sunday schools in general and children's programming for these struggles to be occurring since COVID. Kids programs just have not picked back up again. And I agree with the word heroic. Kit and Mary have, I really believe, saved the Seek program. So thank you for that. I want to echo those thanks. Katie, who is leaving the board, and of course we knew each other before working on the board together, but we've gotten to know each other on obviously a deeper level with our, almost daily emails that the board has and meetings that we have. Katie is so thorough and dependable and kind, and working with her has been such a joy. She is somebody who gets it done. And the job that she has not been easy. And it takes a very special person to do that job. And we love you for it. And to Stephanie, the hostess with the mostess, right? That should be on your name tag. She is not just, she stayed on for this 7th year, right? And she was not just a warm body on the board. She absolutely gave her all to this. She had so much wisdom to share with us and support to give to us. The text exchanges, the emails, the phone calls, the extra meetings, the unexpected stuff. I don't know how we would have done it without you, Stephanie. Thank you for being here for this last year. I want to also extend my thanks and appreciation. Oh, wait, before I get to Amy. Congratulations to Scott and Rachel. I'm really excited to serve with you. We're going to make a great team. And I also want to thank Darian and Nancy for being here tonight. Darian is running the sound and the streaming, and Nancy is being awesome. Okay, so to Amy. We could not have dreamt what this job could entail. I hope it wasn't a bait and switch, but you have embraced these challenges with humor and enthusiasm and genuine care for us. I mean, like before she even, her first start date was January 2nd. December, she was in here with ideas and coming to good cheer. I came in to meet with Nancy one day in December, and Amy was just like, she just popped in and was like shooting off some ideas, not on the clock yet. It was, you know what, when it's not on the clock because it's in your heart, that is when you know you've got the right person. And we appreciate you so much. You have brought such warmth to this role and to the society. You have spent so much time getting to know our members in a real connected way, not superficial. You want to know us. She wants to know us. She wants to support us and care for us. She just wants to take care of us, and it's so beautiful. And at the same time, she's bringing accountability to the staff and to the members, and supporting all of us, the members and the staff, at the same time. She's extremely open-minded, willing to listen, willing to hear criticism, desires feedback. And I mean, I'll go on record saying that I love you. Thank you. And finally to Lance. I'm gonna start crying. Okay, this has been a little bit of a challenging year. Just a little bit. He told me recently, you know, I didn't accept the president role because, you know, in 2020, I was just gonna have too much going on. And I think that would have paled in comparison to what this year and a half have brought. And you have led the board, you've led the society with humor, tact, level-headedness, an unbelievable amount of eloquence, and the deepest concern for and commitment to the ethical society that I could ever dream of seeing. And I just want you all to know he has worked so hard, endless, tireless, and so invested in our community. And I'm in awe of you. And I'm really glad that I get to lean on you for the next year. When I was asked to take the role of president-elect, I was like, and when I realized that you were the president, I said, okay, yes, working with Lance, I'm in. So on behalf of everybody here, all of our members, I want to say thank you so much, Lance. I was really hoping a standing ovation would happen, but I wasn't going to ask for it. But you knew it. You knew it. All right, and so to everybody in this room, everybody online, assuming the streaming is working, everybody who's watching the recording afterward, this year's pledge team encouraged the members to accept responsibility, and you have all shown up. You are showing up when you say yes to joining a committee, joining a team, leading a committee or a team, paying attention to the AEU, and caring about what happens on a national level. You're showing up when you volunteer for events, right? These events can't happen without you. Trivia Night couldn't happen without a strong team of committed members. You're showing up when you respond to online surveys. You can sit at your computer or on your phone and respond to a survey. It's showing up. And when we have memorial services and naming services, naming ceremonies in our community, you're showing up. It can be big, it can be small, but this community is strong because of you. And I want to thank you for showing up. And I wish I had a gavel. I adjourn the meeting. these the, okay.
Okay.
Cool.
The only thing that stays out is the cookie.
Thank you.